From the four corners of this land we call America the Beautiful, here is a fascinating look at the world around us. RV trips of adventure, discovery, and beauty to find some of the most beautiful and unique places, people, and events on American Odyssey. Join us now as we leave the freeways behind and head for the back roads of America to discover what's just beyond the next bend in the road. I've got to learn to slow down and take it a little at a time. Fortunately for you, I didn't do that on this trip, so let's take a round-robin trip on the back roads of Colorado to visit the highest suspension bridge in the world, explore a gold mine, and, hey, better yet, stick around. There's a lot more on this American Odyssey. When you get to Denver, Colorado, and head west on Interstate 70, you begin to realize that you're where the west commences, and you may also notice that you're surrounded by big, beautiful mountains. Until then, you've just been one of them thar flatland foreigners. On this Odyssey of Colorado's scenic backroads and byways, we'll be heading southwest of Denver and west of Colorado Springs to Royal Gorge and the old gold mining town of Cripple Creek. To make the most of the scenic byways, we'll head west on I-70 and then pick our way south through Breckenridge. Breckenridge is a small resort city of about 4,000 permanent residents at an elevation of 9,600 feet above sea level. Soon after the California Gold Rush of 1849, a backwash of miners came to the newly discovered gold and silver fields in the Colorado Mountains. In the east and middle west, the financial panic of 1857 created a large pool of jobless workers and landless farmers, men who were eager to head west in search of a new life. The population swells periodically as skiers come in the winter and hikers in the summer. This town, like so many others in the West, gained fame in 1859 with the shouts of gold echoing through the mountains and valleys. As a tribute to the hard-working jackasses that hauled the ore cars and the prospectors' tools, a bronze statue was placed in the middle of town. In the spring and summer, this area is a riot of colors as flowers make Breckenridge the perfect place for hiking in the summer and snow sports of all kinds in the winter season. These days, Breckenridge is world famous for white gold, and the most common shouts are shouts of exhilaration as snow folks do their thing on the slopes and trails during Colorado's ski season. The alpine resorts here in Breckenridge are some of the most beautiful in the world, and this is truly an all-season resort for those who enjoy the mountains and the rivers and the fresh air of the West. I don't know what got into these geese unless this is mating season. And if that's the case, then this is a prime example of how a man's mind tends to go into fibrillation during mating season. You know, I've seen this happen to some of my friends, too. I guess when you get older, it seems to abate somewhat. At least that's what they tell me. Well, it looks like it's time to get a move on. South of Breckenridge are some beautiful mountain lakes, surrounded by majestic mountains that, well, they just reach all the way to the sky and make you appreciate being alive. The Blue River that flows through Breckenridge is a popular fishing spot, and people come from all over to enjoy what the river has to offer, which includes rafting as well as fishing. Hey, the guy in back's not paddling. One of the greatest things a man can do for his son or daughter is to take them fishing. Now, it doesn't matter whether you catch a fish or not. You've given that child something much more valuable than a fish. You know, I think one nice thing about backroading is that if and when you come upon a relic from the past, like this old abandoned homestead, it gives you the opportunity to, well, kind of reflect upon the halcyon days of someone else's past. And that tends to put your own dreams into proper perspective. Now, this log home probably didn't fall into decay because of failure, but rather the family that lived here probably outgrew it and went on to better times. Out of the way, sweetheart. That's better. After continuing south on State Route 9, we are now approaching Canyon City, the gateway to Royal Gorge. Now, if you happen to be coming this way, there's a one-way road above the main highway called Skyline Drive that I drove my towed vehicle along. The road is narrow and it can be dangerous, but the view is worth it if you have a small vehicle with you. I've never seen anything quite like this. You wouldn't want to take anything larger on this road, trust me. And if you want to sit on a rock ledge like I did and wave at the cars below like I did, just watch your steps so you don't fall on your keister like I did. Oh, what a klutz. I'll bet the camera was rolling, too. As we got closer to Royal Gorge, I noticed deer all over the place, so I pulled over to check them out. The deer are amazingly tame and seem to know how to handle the thousands of tourists that stop to pet and feed them.
Sure you know what they do? They're probably so used to this type of food and fruits. I've seen everybody feeding them carrots and celery.
Well, that's good for them. You can buy deer food at the gorge that's designed for their nutritional needs. And for heaven's sakes, don't feed them junk food, or even people food for that matter. You know what that stuff does to them. Colorado is known for its spectacular scenery, and there are few places that can compare with the famous Royal Gorge, where the highest suspension bridge in the world soars 1,053 feet above the raging Arkansas River. The bridge was built in 1929 at a cost of $350,000. To build the bridge today would cost over $10 million. It took 7 months to build, and surprisingly, there were no fatalities during its construction. Each year, over 500,000 people, including pretty little girls, walk or drive across its nearly quarter-mile span to marvel at this blend of man and nature. Well, look at that. The rocking chair brigade seems to have taken their place at the visitor center. You know, there's something magical about a rocking chair that appeals to all ages. The incline railway to the bottom of the gorge goes up and down at an angle of 45 degrees and takes 5.5 minutes each way. The cages you ride in are perfectly safe, but the ride is a cozy way of getting to know your neighbors. And once you're at the bottom, look up to the bridge above. It's quite a sight. The Arkansas River is also a popular rafting river, and you'll probably get a chance to watch the Daring go crashing through the rapids. The granite walls surround you as you marvel at natural beauty as well as the engineering wonders of man in total harmony with nature. The road from Canyon City to Cripple Creek is something to write home to Mother about. I followed a blacktop road north, which soon turned into gravel, then into dirt the further north I went. There are 3 scenic routes to Cripple Creek, and I sent our motorhome and crew on the western and easiest route, while I took my Vanagon up the 4-mile creek road, the roughest of the 3. The sign says it all. Well, since the weather was good, I kept going through the fantastic canyons and on through the cliff-carved road of a spectacular scenic byway that's worth going out of your way to see and experience. Boy, America sure has some beautiful scenic highways. Well, no sooner did I find my way out of the steep canyons of 4 Mile Creek when I found my producer and cameraman in a store called, appropriately enough, the Brass Ass. I think it should have been plural.
Howdy, partner. Come on into Cripple Creek, won't you?
In towns like this, you never know what you might run into. You are the weirdest looking miner I've ever seen.
Not me. You can tell that I'm the epitome of grace and style and perfection.
Where in the world did you come from?
I'm from Cripple Creek, Colorado, the gambling capital of the United States of America.
Well, like I said, you never know who you might run into in Cripple Creek. There were some fun things to do here in Cripple Creek, and one of them was riding the old mining train left over from them thar days. Along the way, I watched as the old homes of past miners drifted by, as well as the old mine tailings, and a building that a proper Britisher would refer to as the necessary. A young lady I was sharing the train with started flirting with me. You know, little girls that age are the cutest little charmers God ever made. This wouldn't be an old western mining town if it didn't have a museum, and a fine museum it does have. In fact, this is one of the better small-town museums that I've come across while in Colorado. Back in the days of active mining, folks in Cripple Creek and the neighboring town of Victor enjoyed a relatively easy, comfortable living. At least that was true of the middle and upper class. It was a whole different story for the miners and their families. They didn't have it quite so good. They toiled in the mines long hours for low pay, and most died early in life. But it was gold they were after, one way or another. The hardest was with pick and shovel, deep in the bowels of Mother Earth. Stepping into a mine elevator is like stepping into a bird cage.
Okay.
There's another fine mess you've gotten me into, Stanley. Well, here we go for a trip 1,000 feet down into the earth. I just suddenly realized we're going down into the bowels of the earth. Smoking rockets, Buck Rogers.
Yeah. You've heard the expression going to hell in a handbasket, haven't you?
Yeah.
Welcome to the handbasket.
Now you tell me.
Look at it this way. If something happened to you while you're down here, you couldn't get buried any deeper, any cheaper.
Never thought of it that way.
What are you doing?
Well, they retired me off the hoist.
Oh, you've got tired off.
Yeah.
Once we got to the bottom, I tried to imagine what it would be like breathing rock dust till I died of pneumonial or microscopic silicovolcaniconiosis, commonly known as black lung or miner's disease. That was the fate of many miners that spent their lives in mines. In some respects, that may also have been the motivation behind some of the miners' devil-may-care attitude when they got their paychecks and went to town. I was shown all sorts of ways to wrestle gold from the tenacious grip of Mother Nature. None of it was easy. The men working these mines became close friends, as sometimes their lives depended upon each other. This is their lunchroom.
Close the door. This is what happens to you if you let the water get in your hair.
Oh boy, it sure was good to see daylight again. As far as I'm concerned, they can keep their gold. Leaving the Cripple Creek area, we stopped long enough to admire another one of God's great gifts to man, a beautiful Colorado sunset. Back in the 1800s, Zebulon Pike never dreamed that someday people would drive to the top of Pikes Peak. Zebulon Pike, a United States Army lieutenant who set out from Missouri in 1807 to explore this area, never climbed the mountain named after him. But you can, and I did. Well, what I mean is that I drove to the top. When you reach the top, you'll be at 14,110 feet, and the air has about half the oxygen as at sea level. Even slight exertion at this altitude can leave you huffing and puffing like a rusty stovepipe. The easy way is to ride the cog railway. The masochistic way is with your RV. Be sure to bring your camera. You don't want to miss the fantastic view from this altitude. On a good day, you'll be able to see the edge of the world. There, far below, is Colorado Springs, looking like a tabletop display. Well, going down was easier than coming up, and when I got to the bottom at Manitou Springs, I stopped by the Manitou Cliff Dwellings Museum. Here are the Anasazi cliff dwellings that date back to around 1200 AD, over 800 years ago, when the Anasazi Indians that inhabited this area built their homes into the red rock cliffs that abound here. You are invited to browse as you wish through the ancient houses and enjoy an authentic Indian dance. After exploring the cliff dwellings, a drive, or preferably a hike, through the Garden of the Gods is something not to be missed. Here is another opportunity for more fabulous pictures. You might even meet Don Borey and his riding companion, Buck.
Yeah, he goes every place. He's good for a couple 100 miles or all day, whichever comes first.
Well, at least you keep your hair wet.
Yeah, yeah, he's got plenty of hair tonic, never runs out.
the question presented itself, why does man risk life and limb to climb mountains? Maybe there really is no better answer than because it's there.
Scenery, kind of
That's neat. I think that's neat.
Yeah, I still got quite a ways to go up in this area. There'll be a lake right in this area.
You do this professionally?
No, I don't.
I was impressed by this young man earning some money for his college education by doing artwork on RVs. What a nice way to earn your way through school and spread a little beauty at the same time. Meanwhile, back at the RV park, I had a delightful chat with Bob and Irene, our newfound friends. We talked about where we'd been and where we were going next. Bob and Irene were newlyweds and already they'd been all over the West, as their wall map proudly indicated. You know, there really are no strangers in RV parks, as I found out when I was invited in by another group.
I don't like to talk to strangers.
I'm
Very lost.
Rudy Schroeder.
Rudy, glad to meet you.
Now you know it.
Glad to know you.
Yep, that's right. There are no strangers in the RV world, only friends you haven't yet met. Colorado is a state of constant exhilaration. Everywhere you go, there is something new to discover and share with whoever you might be with on your backroad Odyssey. And sharing it with someone is a way of doubling your pleasure. I'm Rudy Schroeder. Thanks for sharing the scenic byways with me on American Odyssey.